New Mexico was a place I didn't get a chance to photograph during the road trip across the US that I did a year and a half ago. And to be honest, it was the main reason for me to go back to the Southwest. I wanted to photograph the southern part of New Mexico, the White Sands, but above all, the northern part of New Mexico because it looked beautiful, and it really was. It was my first time in northern New Mexico, but a lot of the landscapes and locations that I visited there looked and felt quite familiar. And that's because a lot of great artists and photographers that I admire have captured, photographed, and painted those locations. One of them was Ansel Adams. I drove by Hernandez one afternoon, and you might know his most famous photograph, that is Moonrise over Hernandez. And even though I wasn't at the exact spot where he made that image from, the landscape looked so familiar, like I had been there before. So it is quite impressive how well he captured that landscape, that it made me feel that way when I was there. Many other locations around there were photographed by Ansel Adams. I was sharing all this trip on my Instagram stories, and someone pointed out to me there that I was photographing the St. Francis Church in Taos exactly 35 years after Ansel Adams' death. He died on April 22nd, and I was there on that day photographing that church that he captures so well. It was almost like a pilgrimage, I guess. His images from that place are pretty incredible, but the place has changed a little bit over time. There were some buildings and trees that don't show up on his images. I was trying to find different angles and try to figure out how he made some of his images, but I couldn't avoid some trees and some buildings, so I'm guessing that those elements are new to that scene. Also, there are some rocks around the church now, to avoid that people parking their cars over there. So it is not possible anymore to make his images, the images that Ansel Adams made there. But I think that there is still a lot of room for original work at that location. I hope I achieved that a little bit. I will be showing you some images that I made there at the end of this video. I also visited Taos Pueblo, which I'm sure has changed even more since Ansel Adams was around capturing it. It is now a UNESCO site, and I'm sure it has a little bit more of tourism than it used to have decades ago, but it is still a beautiful, beautiful place. I had a guided tour there, and it was amazing to learn all that kind of stuff about the ancient civilizations that lived there many hundreds of years ago. So that was pretty cool. I didn't have much time at that location though, because it started to rain quite a lot, so I had to leave. But yeah, Santa Fe has a lot of culture. There are a lot of art galleries and museums. We visited the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum, and I loved that. I visited some of the locations that she used to go to, like one that is called, or I think they used to call, the White Place. And they are like very cool rock formations, white rock formations. And it was quite an experience to be there too, in a place that inspired such a great artist like Georgia O'Keeffe. And talking about rocks, I also visited the Bandelier National Monument, because there is all the stuff in the US as well, built by humans many hundreds of years ago. These dwellings are several hundred years old, and they are well preserved, kind of. They are not the best. I think that there is another national monument farther north in Colorado that is called Mesa Verde. I think that's the most famous one. I visited quite a few spots in Arizona a year and a half ago too, so it's pretty cool to see these old constructions here in the US, because you usually don't think of the US as a place with old buildings and old structures like that. It was a very challenging place to photograph as well, but I had a lot of fun there. Anyway, I found it very inspiring to see all these places that have inspired all these great artists and photographers over the years. And I think it's a very good exercise to be at the famous locations like those, where you know images and work from previous photographers, and you try to figure out how they saw that composition, what they were trying to do, and you try to figure out what conditions they shot in. It was raining, it was cloudy, it was at this time of the day, and you try to figure out why they did that and what they were trying to achieve there. That is a terrific exercise, and that's why I love going to well-known locations or locations that have been photographed by photographers before, because I like to do that kind of stuff. I can only imagine what people like Ansel Adams felt when they first saw those breathtaking landscapes of the West, like the first time that he went to Yosemite or to the Grand Tetons when he made that image of the Snake River, or all these locations in New Mexico, because for many of them that was probably the first time that they saw that place. Now that experience is a little bit ruined for us because there are thousands of images and videos out there and we've seen it all without even being there. Still, the experience of being at places like Yosemite, I mean, there is no photo or video that does justice to that place. It's just an amazing experience, and until we get VR, that's probably the only way. There is not a better way than being there in person to experience that place. But people like Ansel Adams got really close to be able to communicate that feeling so accurate in such an accurate way, because it made me feel his images made me feel like I had been in New Mexico before, and that is quite impressive. So yeah, I'm just gonna show you some of the images that I made there in northern New Mexico. I hope you enjoy them. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.